What is up folks, welcome back to the channel. This is Shashank and in this tutorial we are going to create this super amazing temperature scale animation using the linear expression. In my last video we used the linear function on single parameter properties like opacity and rotation, but in this video we will level up and use the linear function with multi-parameter properties like position and scale. Yes, the properties which have a x value and a y value in a two-dimensional space. Well, if this sounds new to you, I suggest go to my previous video and watch the basics of linear expressions there. But if you are comfortable, let's proceed with the video, and before we jump into After Effects, let's sketch our concept right on the whiteboard. Alright, let's understand how linear function is applied to multi-parameter properties like position and scale. Let's take an example of object position first. So I have this xy plane and this cute little ball which is at point A on this xy plane. I have this slider now which is at 0. Now what I want is, when I move the slider from 0 to 100, the position of the ball should change from point A to point B like this. And let's say the ball moves from point A to point B along this path, right? Let's assume the position value of this ball at point A is x1, y1, and when this ball moves to point B, its position changes to x2, y2. Yeah. Now let's write the linear function for this. How linear function is written? It's written as linear input value in min, which is the minimum value on input range, in max, which is the maximum value on input range, and these two value gets mapped to outmin, which is the minimum value on output range, and outmax, the maximum value on output range, right? Let's color these. Now in our case, what is the input value? Input value is the value of this slider, and in min value is the minimum value of slider, in max is the maximum value of slider. So if we have to write for this scenario, this will be input value is the value of slider, in min is the minimum value on slider which is 0, in max is 100 which is the maximum value on slider, right? So what is the outmin and outmax here? Now outmin is the initial position of the ball and outmax is the final position of the ball. So initial position of the ball which is at point A is x1, y1, and the final position of the ball which is at point B is x2, y2. Right? So this is how we write the linear function for multi-parameter properties, which is position in this case. Now let's say if this ball is in a 3D space, how we will write the linear function for this. So let's say if there is one more axis, z axis here. So the ball is in a 3D space. So now it will have a value on x axis, y axis and z axis, right? So its initial position will become x1, y1, z1, and its final position will become x2, y2, z2, right? So the linear function for this will be x1, y1, z1 and x2, y2, z2. Now, the thing you need to understand in case of position is the minimum value of your input gets mapped to the initial position and the maximum value of your input gets mapped to the final position of the object. So this is how the mapping works in case of position. Now in case of scale, it's again very straightforward, just like position. You just need to map the minimum and maximum value of input to the initial value of scale and to the final value of scale. It's simple, isn't it? Now let's apply this concept and build the temperature scale in After Effects. Yo folks, now we are in After Effects and let's build this. So I have this scale here which I designed in Figma and I exported it as a PNG image in After Effects. Well, since I'm not going to animate this, I'll leave it up to you how you want to design this. You can design it on your own as per your creativity, or I'll just give a link to download what I designed in the description, right? So in this tutorial, we will be using a free After Effects plugin called Saber. Saber is completely free and you can download it from Video Copilot website. I'll give the link in the description for you to download. And once you download it, install it, it will appear in your effects and presets. Like if you search for Saber, it will appear here under the Video Copilot section, and it's already installed in my system. So I'll move ahead with this. So in the first step, I'm going to right click in the layers panel and create a new solid layer. Let's create a solid layer. Let's put this behind the scale and let's rename this solid layer and call it cold wave. Yep. Now let's apply the Saber effect to the cold wave layer. Yep. Now in the Saber effects and controls, choose the preset as portal. Yes, and change the color to something which represents something cool. I think I'm going to go with this color. Yeah, looks nice. Now next step is very important and you must pay attention to this. So what I'm going to do now is create a circular mask on the cold wave layer. So select the elliptical tool and press Ctrl Shift. Make sure the cold wave layer is selected here in the layers panel, and when you hover on this layer, you will see the mask icon. Now if you are seeing the mask icon, then you're doing right, and hold Ctrl Shift and just create a circle from the center. I guess this size would be enough. Yep. So we created a mask, circular mask here, and now go into the effect controls, open this section, customize core, and in the core types from Saber, change it to layer mask. And yeah, this is what we want. Let's put this here and let's play around with some setting. I'm going to decrease the glow a little bit for the cold wave. I guess this is fine. I'm not going to tweak much setting. You can play around with settings and get creative as much as you want. Okay, so this seems fine to me. Or maybe I'll just decrease a little bit more. Yeah, so this seems fine to me. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate this layer, and let's duplicate this layer and bring this layer down, and let's rename this layer. Let's call this heat wave. Now in the heat wave layer, make sure the heat wave layer is selected in the layers panel and go to the effect controls in the Saber. Now for the heat wave layer, I'm going to choose the solar as a preset. Now if I turn off this layer, I have this layer. Yep, the heat wave looks like this. So I'm going to play around with the settings also here as well. So just maybe decrease the intensity a bit. I guess this. Well, this is completely subjective and you can play around with as per your usage, how much glow you want, how much intensity you want. So it's totally up to you. So I guess I'll go with this. Right, so we have two layers of cold wave and a heat wave. So let's turn on the cold wave layer first, and yep. So now what we need a container here, circular container here, which will have the temperature reading. So let's say the temperature is 15, so it will display the 15 here, and if the temperature is 45, it will display 45 or the middle values, whatever we have here, right? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to select the ellipse tool. Make sure no layer is selected so that we create a new shape. Now I'm going to create a circular shape approximately or almost the same size as this circular part. So hold Ctrl Shift or Command Shift if you are using Mac, and draw the circle from the center. I guess this is fine. Yep. Let's call this as front face. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to link cold wave and heat wave, both the layers, to front face. Now front face is the parent layer for both these layers, heat wave and cold wave, right? I'm going to change the color of the cold wave layer to cyan and heat wave to orange, just to distinguish between them. And now we need a controller layer. So what we do when we need a controller, we create a null object. Right click on the layers panel, create a null object. Right, let's rename it. Let's call it controller. Yep. So on the null object, we are going to apply our slider control, because this is what is going to drive the animation. So let's search for slider control in effects and presets, drag and drop the slider control on the controller layer, which is the null object, right? So our basic setup for this animation is ready, and the animation logic that I'm going to follow is pretty simple. Now what I'm going to do here is, when the front face moves from left to right, the opacity of the cold wave will decrease from 100 to 0, and the opacity of the heat wave will increase from 0 to 100 at the same time. So this is the simple logic that I am following, and I'll write the linear expression according to this. So let's write the linear expression now. Open the controller layer. We have the slider here. Open the front face layer. Go to the position property. Alt click on this to open the expression console. Let's create a variable. Let's call it front face position equals to, grab the pick wick and connect it to the slider on the controller layer. Yeah. So whatever the value of the slider is, it will be stored in this variable. Now let's write the linear function. Linear. What's our input? Front face position. Yep. Minimum value of slider is 0, maximum value of slider is 100, and let's map these two values to the initial and final position. Now what is the initial position of this front face? You can see it in the position property here. It's 357 and 376. So 357 and 376. Now since this slider is moving horizontally, that is, it's moving only along x-axis, its y value will not change. So in the maximum value of output range, we will only change the x value. So let's say x value can change up to 1500. I'm just taking a approximate guess. Well, you can put it whatever according to your comp size, and the y value will not change, so it will be 376, right? Yep. Now let's test it. Let's go to the slider control. I'm 0 to 100. So okay, so it's moving somewhere in between 40 and 45. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to increase like from 1500 to 1600. So I have mapped this value, 100 value, to the this x-axis, which is 1600 on x-axis, right? So yep. Now when the slider value is 100, it will move towards here. It's around 45, or maybe I'll just increase it a little bit more, 1650, I guess. Yep. Yeah, this is fine, I guess. This looks nice. Let's bring the slider control back to 0. Yep. And write the linear expression for the opacity of these two layers, cold wave and heat wave. So I'm going to select the cold wave layer, press T. It will open the opacity. Alt click on this icon and it will open the expression control for the opacity of this cold wave layer. So let's define a variable first. Let's call this cold wave opacity. Grab the pick whip and connect it to the slider. So whatever the value on the slider is, it will be stored in the cold wave opacity variable, right? Now linear input is this cold wave opacity. Slider minimum value is 0, maximum value is 100. Now since this opacity of cold wave layer is going to decrease as the front face moves from right to left, so 0 will be mapped to 100, since when the slider is 0, its opacity is 100, and when the slider is 100, its opacity is 0. So we're going to reverse map here. Yep, like this. And now on the heat wave layer, I'm going to press T, alt click on the opacity, and let's call the variable heat wave opacity. Grab the pick whip again and connect it to the slider. Yep. And let's write the linear function for this as well. Linear input is heat wave opacity. Minimum value of slider is 0, maximum value of slider is 100, and let's connect it to 0. When the slider value is 0, heat wave opacity is 0, and when slider value is 100, heat wave opacity is 100. So 0 to 100. Let's see. Now let's test it. When I increase the slider value, the opacity of cold wave decreases and heat wave increases. So it's create a stunning transition like this. Yeah. So what I feel is, I guess we need to start the heat wave, I guess, from this point around 35, right? So when the slider is around 70%, so I'm going to play around the value here. When the slider value is 70, make the heat wave opacity 100. Yep. Now let's test it. Yeah, this is fine. This looks nice. Now we need a text layer which will display the temperature inside it and will also animate as the temperature increases on our scale, right? So let's create a text layer and let's change the font size to around 130 and change the font weight to bold, and let's put it here. And I'm going to create another text layer for the label, so I'll call it current temperature. Let's reduce its size to around 28 and font weight to regular and put it here like this. Yep. Now let's select both the text layers and connect them to the front face layer. So front face layer becomes the parent for both of our text layers. So as our front face move, these layers will also follow. Now as the slider value increases, we want our number to animate and display the temperature, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write the linear expression on the text layer. So open the text layer, go to text and go to the source text property, alt click on the source text property and create a variable called temperature. Grab the pick tool and connect it to the slider, and let's write the linear function for this. Linear input is temperature, minimum value of the slider is 0, maximum value is 100, and minimum value on our scale is, let's say, is 16 and maximum value is 45, right? Now let's see. Now as we increase the slider, the number is increased, but we have a problem here. We have this long string of decimal numbers that we need to get rid of, right? So how do we get rid of this? How do we fix this? To fix this, we have a function called Math.round, which will round off this number to the nearest whole integer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this linear function inside Math.round. So I'm going to put Math.round and put the linear function inside it. And now let's see. Yep. So what Math.round does, it eliminates the decimal points. And yeah. Now as the final step, I want to add that degree symbol here on this text, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy the degree symbol from this website called degreesymbol.net, copy it here, go to the After Effects, and on this line where we have written linear function, I'm going to write plus, and in double quotes I'm going to paste the degree symbol like this, and that's it. Now let's apply the keyframes. I'm going to apply the keyframe on the 0 seconds, and then let's move to around 3 seconds. Easy ease, and maybe increase it too, and I'll just copy the keyframe like this. Yep, let's see now. And this is it. This is our final result. So that's it for this video. If you find this video helpful, please consider subscribing my channel or share the video with someone who might find it useful. I'll come up with more amazing stuff ahead. See you in the next video. Till then, this is me, Shashank, signing off.